Happy New Year, Chelsea fans! It's a new year, but the same problems continue to persist. Chelsea traveled to Nottingham Forest and draw 1-1. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour!
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is your Chelsea match review show, but more specifically, a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Nottingham Forest. But before I get into all that, you can do me a big favor by hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell notification button to keep up with the latest and the newest. Of course, it helps me with the algorithm, gets more people watching this channel. And of course, it'll help my sponsors who go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you don't already know, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so on the backs of Chelsea playing some decent minutes against Bournemouth the other day, Chelsea have traveled to Nottingham Forest and emerged with a 1-1 draw, with Raheem Sterling providing the only goal and the only real chance creation in the entire game, if you ask me. It was a really, really poor performance, just lethargic all over the pitch, and, you know, just tactically outmatched on the sidelines once again. What we're going to be speaking on today specifically about this match is we're going to be talking about Chelsea's midfield. We're going to be analyzing the midfield three of Mason Mount, Jorginho, and Zakaria. We're also going to look at that right side of Chelsea's pitch. And we're also going to look at Graham Potter and figure out if there's anything that he can do to help get Chelsea into better positions to succeed on the pitch. Okay, now if you watch the show enough, you know that most of my focus is on the midfield, because that's where I feel like most of the battles are won and lost in the midfield. And today was a perfect example of how to lose a midfield battle. Clearly, Chelsea played a 4-3-3 with Mason Mount as a number 8, number 10, Zakaria on the right playing as sort of like the roving destroyer, and of course Jorginho in his regista role. And the balance in the midfield, first and foremost, was just horrific, but I will get into that. The main thing was why Chelsea couldn't get anybody on the ball in the midfield is because they're just man-marked out of the game. I think that Steve Cooper did a good job of identifying the blueprint for how to beat Chelsea, and it's to keep the midfielders off the ball, force them out into wide areas, force the ball into wide areas, and, you know, let the wide midfielders, either be the wing-backs or the full-backs, provide the width and create. And today was another perfect example of why Chelsea are so ineffective when we don't have Reece James, when we don't have Chilwell, guys that are adept at getting down the flank, providing width, and of course building attacks. We had Azpilicueta, who's clearly not the same Azpilicueta we've had for years. He's just in decline, let's just be honest there. So, you know, that cuts off one supply line because we can't go to the right and hope to create there. And, you know, on the other side we had Cucurella, who, although he did overlap, just did not provide anything in the final third of any real quality. So, you know, ultimately they man-marked in the middle with Freuler, I think it was Yates, and Mangala, and they just sat on our midfielders. And even though we had 70% of the possession, most of the touches were afforded to Thiago Silva and, of course, Koulibaly in the middle of the pitch, and we just could not find the space to get our midfielders on the ball. And you have to use your movement when you're being man-marked. You have to make yourself available. You have to move into areas where the defense are a little bit more uncomfortable to allow for other people to get on the ball. All of these things were just not done enough in this game. Overall, every one of the midfielders that we had on the pitch today just did not do enough and did not assert themselves enough, did not put enough energy into the game to affect it. And again, you know what I say, like, that's where the game is always won and lost. If you have a midfield three that do not want to work, do not want to move, get into areas where they can get on the ball, or at least pull defenders out of their position, their shape, then, you know, you have a static setup and you have a very, very hard time getting the three attackers that are left to get into areas where they can score goals. We didn't create one decent opportunity today, not one. Now, once again, this is in stark contrast to what we've seen against Bournemouth. Like, for me, Mason Mount was the man of the match in that game. He was moving into great areas. He was setting the tone for what we wanted to do in the press sequences. He was very good at combining with Kai Havertz and moving into space and whatnot. And it was just an exact opposite today. You know, he let Yates get into his head. He was, or even Freuler for that matter, and and he was often not able to get on the ball and dictate. And when you're playing that number 8, number 10 role, it's so important that you have that when you're getting marked out of the game, that when you do get on the ball, you have efficient, effective touches. In the first half of this game, I thought Mason Mount did a good job of attracting attention to himself from the midfield and allowing for likes of Pulisic and every now and then Cucurella to get in 1v1 situations with the defenders. We just weren't very good when we got into those situations. Obviously, Pulisic dwelled on the ball a little bit more, and we just couldn't break down the remaining defenders. But I thought he was decent in the first half at providing space for 1v1 situations. Teams are working extremely hard to keep him off of the ball, and when he does get those touches, he has to be more efficient with them. He has to be able to create something. He has to be able to be more impactful when he does get on the ball. And it's just another game where you see he gets limited touches, but at the same time, when he does get the touches, he's not doing much with it to affect or impact the final third. And I'm sorry, that number 8, number 10 for role is the hub of ideation and creation in the team. It has to be. That role is so specifically important. You're in the central area. You're the one that's supposed to be connecting the midfield to the attackers. And when you're not effective on the ball, when you're giving it away, when you're wayward with your passes, when you're getting chopped down because you're not moving the ball quickly enough, all of these things contribute to Chelsea not being able to be effective in the final third. So that number 8, number 10, that hybrid role that he seems to be playing and playing a lot under a multitude of managers, he just needs to be better, especially when he's not providing the energy and the enthusiasm that we normally see from him. We have to have the efficiency in touches. When he's getting his touches, he has to be very effective and efficient to make something out of nothing. If not that, then at least move the ball into areas where we can be dangerous, and I'm just not seeing that enough. Now, a lot of what I'm saying right now just comes down to the fact that this midfield is completely unbalanced and just lacks synergy. I mean, seeing Denis Zakaria in that Conte role, that sort of roving destroyer role, was just abysmal today. And for me specifically, that roving destroyer role is tactically specific, and not many people can effectively play that role. I mean, should really be called the Conte role, because he's the only one that really, really excels in this particular role. I haven't seen anyone else in world football that can give you those types of performances consistently time and time again. Your ability to win tackles, to produce turnovers, has to be exceptional in this role. You have to be razor sharp. Your anticipation, your ability to close has to be elite. And these are the traits that Conte possesses, and for whatever reason, managers think that this is something that can be duplicated with players that have B-Tech skill sets, and I don't think that anyone in this squad right now can give you what Conte. I don't think there's a lot of football players in the world that can give you that Conte role at a high enough level to utilize it in this side right now, because we just look extremely unbalanced when Conte's not there, and it just leaves us extremely exposed and lacking any sort of real cutting edge. I can't tell you the last time Chelsea have been able to press effectively, win the ball, set traps, spring traps on teams. It just does not happen when Conte's not on the pitch. Not enough, at least. And to have Zakaria in this role, he wasn't really poor because he didn't protect Jorginho. He was poor to me today because he provided no cover for the likes of Azpilicueta, Raheem Sterling, and Koulibaly, who, on that entire right side of the pitch was just abysmal today. Horrific. And you want somebody that's in that roving destroyer role to be the one that's filling the gaps in that particular area of the pitch, where somebody, falters, like Azpilicueta falters. You have Zakaria there to snap in and win the ball back. And we just did not see that enough. And for that reason, I don't think we can play with a roving destroyer if it's not N'Golo Kante. And we have to figure out another way to play in that midfield right now, with him or without him. Now, it's growing more and more evident as the days pass that when Jorginho is on the pitch and he can't get on the ball, he's absolutely useless in that Chelsea side. You can't have a tactical decoy on the pitch, especially somebody who's sitting in front of the defense, and it seems like that's what his role has become. The entire first half, he was just so frustrating to watch on the pitch, not moving to create passing lanes for our defenders. So many times in that first half, you saw Silva just basically yelling at Jorginho to move out of the way, to get out of the way, to open up passing lanes for the likes of Silva and Koulibaly for that matter. if he's not going to be able to get on the ball, if he's being man-marked out of the game, then he has to provide passing angles for the defenders to get on the ball and dictate what's happening next. And for me, I just blame Graham Potter in this particular instance specifically. You know, we're being man-marked out of the game, and what's your plan B? Your plan B is to get our center backs into the game, have them, you know, dictate our attacking moves from deep. And it puts an immense amount of pressure on them because, number one, Jorginho's not the best cover if they do get caught out. And at the same time, you know, they're not the best at playing the ball out from the back either. You know, they're not the best at like setting tempo. They're not the best at getting us on the front foot. Like, yes, you can see Silva like play those long balls, you know, angling balls in behind the defense and whatnot, but I mean, it's not necessarily the best game plan when you're trying to be a possession-based team with a high line. You know, you play those long angled balls, you play those like, you know, those killer balls. You know, once every 3 to 4 times it'll come off. But then when the instances when it doesn't happen, you know, you're caught out of possession and you have a slow back line and you're getting exposed down the flanks. So it's a culmination of things. But for me, Graham Potter has to recognize what Jorginho's strengths are, and if he's not providing that in the game, then he has no purpose. I mean, I would have much rather seen a midfield three that provides us with, you know, ball retention, dribbling, and, you know, just like basically a box-to-box presence. You know, obviously when Kovacic came into the game, he offered something that we wanted to see, you know, somebody that can drive the ball a bit, you know, get into the final third. He had way more touches than Jorginho in the limited time that he had. I think Jorginho had 70 some odd minutes or something like that and had only 40 touches. When Kovacic came into the game, I think he had 33 touches in what was it, 22, 23 minutes of action. And, you know, that just goes to show you what the game was asking for, what the game was calling for, who was moving into pockets of space to collect the ball and then moving to get into a better position. You just don't get that from Jorginho. And if that's not what you're going to get in a game where you're being man-marked all over the pitch, then what's the point of having him in the game? I just don't get why he's persisted to keep him in the game when tactically we couldn't get him in the game, and tactically we're getting like basically run over in the midfield as well. And you have guys on the bench who could provide more of what the game needs that are not getting the minutes. Like, how long did it take him to realize that the midfield was not functioning? It's clear to me the problems with Chelsea right now are more about the injuries that we've incurred than we do the quality have on the side. I mean, when you take N'Golo Kante and Reece James out of the pitch, you leave a seismic gap that cannot be filled. And it's for this reason that I think, you know, obviously the N'Golo Kante thing is something that we've talked about at length, and I really don't think that there's an heir apparent at the club, even in world football. So we're going to have to revolutionize that midfield in order to find more synergy and find more, you know, cohesiveness there if we're not going to have N'Golo Kante at his best, you know, 80 to 90% of the time. So that's a problem in and of itself. But when you take Reece James out of the fold as well, and the drop-off is, you know, Azpilicueta, who clearly cannot give us what we need on that right flank anymore. It's just glaring right now. He cannot keep up with the pace of the game. You know, he's caught out of position. He's forced to be up the pitch because we are a possession-based team. And when he's caught out, he has a hard time getting back, and there's just absolutely no cover for him. You know, he was horrific today, just awful. He provided nothing in the final third, and then defensively was just so tactically poor. You know, we have to address this. We cannot be a team that's trying to strive for, you know, higher heights, you know, Champions League, you know, titles and whatnot, and have Reece James, who I think his style of play is conducive for him to getting injuries, a fair few, and we've seen it already. We cannot have his backup be somebody like Azpilicueta or Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who, you know, can fill in a pinch, but that's not his position in any way, shape, or form. So that needs to be addressed. I know we talk a lot about the midfield, we talk a lot about what we see in the attacking third, but, you know, if Reece James is going to be as injury prone as he is, and I think he will be just because of the way he plays, we need a quality backup, just somebody that can come in and maybe not give us like for like minutes, but at least give us something more than we're getting right now from that position. Because without a fullback, wingback who can get up and down the pitch, you know, win tackles, you know, marshal, you know, put in telling balls, cross, you know, get into the box, be a nuisance, provide something that, you know, in an overlap that defenses have to account for, were just going to be really, really easy to snuff out. Raheem Sterling today playing on the right was not very good. Of course he did score the goal, but in terms of his ability to find somebody to play off of, he had nobody. Like Zakaria, awful. Obviously you look for Azpilicueta as an overlapping option. He's not looking to engage in that final third the same way. So he was isolated and gave away the ball far too many times. And that's not specifically down to the personnel on the pitch. That also comes down to him. I thought he was really poor, really, really poor today. And you wonder why he stayed on the pitch as long as he did. When he can't, the reasons why we can't build a cohesive attack is because whenever we play to Raheem Sterling, he's getting run over and turning the ball over, and then it's right down our throats again. So. Yeah, he was really, really poor, and he wasn't the only one. I already spoke on Zakaria and why I don't think that he's, a roving destroyer. He's a guy that I don't know what his role would be in the midfield. I don't know. He can't pass it well enough to be a guy that you can use in the build-up. He's a guy that you basically want to see just run into the box and, just bully his way in there and hopefully provide another option to strike a goal. But in terms of build-up play, he doesn't really provide much there either. And then further down the pitch, you have Koulibaly, which for me was very confusing. For large chunks, for club and country, he's always the left-sided center back. And for whatever reason, since the World Cup, Graham Potter's decided to play him at the right side in the back four. And man, I don't know. He hasn't really been good as a left-sided center back either. But putting him to the right, where you have Azpilicueta and Raheem Sterling and Zakaria on that right side, just seemed like tactically another error from Graham Potter. I don't get what we're getting from that. He's more comfortable on the left. He plays on the left for Senegal. He played on the left for the majority of his Napoli career. To see him play on the right now, where he's lacking foot speed, he's lacking awareness, he's lacking intensity, he's lacking anticipation, all of these things. It just seems like the wrong decision once again. Maybe the wrong decision to play him because he's just not in form. I watched him during the World Cup and he gave Senegal some good minutes during the World Cup. But overall, his time at Chelsea has not been good. He had a decent game when Reece James was playing against Bournemouth. He looked okay. As soon as Reece James came out of the game and we saw Azpilicueta, the same problems have persisted. Just a lack of ability to really read the game and just a step slow in terms of when the decisions are to be made on the pitch, and it's become a real problem. I don't know how to solve it. Fofana's obviously out for a month. Koulibaly, I don't know. He tends to be better on the left. Maybe you put him back there, but for whatever reason, Graham Potter has decided to play him there, and it's just not worked out at all. At all. He was horrific today. And the other thing that I just don't understand with Graham Potter right now is the fact that when teams have elevated their intensity level, and many teams do against Chelsea because they know that if they play with energy and passion and intensity, we usually we'll fall back into our shells and not find a way to get out of it again and just get overrun. And it was a perfect example of that again in the second half. And the ability for Graham Potter to recognize what's happening and then change it, really impact the game from the bench is just non-existent. I don't think I've ever seen a Chelsea game where we had to go through the gears to match the intensity level of the players on the pitch from the opposition. And, as a result, we just continually concede. We're inviting on pressure and not having a way to get out of it, not having a way to play through them, not having an ability to threaten them in the back line. The assessment, the time it takes you to realize that this is not working is just way too long. And as a result, Chelsea are obviously losing confidence in their ability to play football, losing confidence in their ability to really threaten teams, running down cul-de-sacs because we have nothing in the midfield to build attacks, go inside, outside, inside. We just don't have that ability. And in the end, we just turn over the ball, and I don't know what else to say. It's just, this can't just be down to the personnel. This has to be tactical. And when you have players on the pitch that cannot provide you with what you need, you have to sub them out, and that has to happen sooner rather than later. We can't be waiting until the 72nd minute before we realize that what we're doing, the game plan's not working. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. This is just so frustrating. Chelsea once again unable to match the intensity of the opponent, in Nottingham Forest, and Second half was just abysmal. We had nothing, absolutely nothing, created nothing, and it's just so frustrating to watch a team that has so much quality not find the synergy, the chemistry to break down a team that's in the relegation zone. You know, it's really, really frustrating. And I think that a lot of it comes down to, yes, a lot of the glue, the sandpaper has been taken out of the side right now with N'Golo Kante injured, Reece James not in the side as well. And those two building blocks are extremely important to what Chelsea want to do. And when you don't have them, you know, the proof is there to behold. We just don't have a chemistry, a synergy of a squad that is capable of really challenging at the higher end of the table. So we're gonna have to address that. I know everyone's talking about the transfer window, and you know, I will be doing a review. I will be doing an analysis of Enzo Fernandez if he does come into Chelsea, because as much as I think that he's quality and he will help us, he's not the answer, guys. He is not the answer. He's very similar to what we have in Jorginho with more ability and more mobility as well. But in terms of what he's going to offer, he's just going to be offering more of what Jorginho did, but with just more quality. And I still think that we need more in that midfield, more, you know, complementary pieces to build around Enzo Fernandez in order for us to be a, you know, functioning midfield three. But I digress. We got Man City next, and it's going to be, I don't know, guys. You know what it means, man. We just gotta show up. You know, we gotta play, match their intensity levels. You know, defend well. You know, be cohesive, be sound, be turned on. And if we don't have that, we can be very easy to play against, and it could be a battering. So let's hope that we show up. Let's hope that we have a game where, you know, we see the return to the likes of, you know, Mason Mount providing the energy and setting the tone. We see Kovacic come in and, you know, help us, you know, build relevant attacks in the midfield, and that we have a little bit more cutting edge in the final third. But until then, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up to Chelsea. Peace.